The world's coastlines are not fixed. They only appear that way on our maps and in our minds. This shift impacts global trade networks first, disrupting the flow of goods that powers the modern economy. It then compromises the digital infrastructure that underpins our interconnected society. What nature accomplished over centuries, our scenario compresses into just over a decade. A 1-meter rise in global mean sea level is not a distant projection for the next century. It is an accelerated reality arriving by 2035. The initial effects are subtle, easily mistaken for routine flooding or unusually high tides. The subsequent changes are not. By the end of this transformation, the world still functions. It has not ended. But it operates under a new set of rules, dictated by a redrawn map. The foundation of sea level is not the volume of water alone, but its temperature. For decades, the world's oceans have acted as a planetary heat sink. This process, known as thermal expansion, is a simple matter of physics. As water warms, it expands. Currently, global sea levels are rising at an average rate of approximately 4.5 millimeters per year. Our scenario, however, posits a radical acceleration. A 1-meter rise by 2035 requires an average increase of over 8 centimeters per year, a rate roughly 20 times faster than what we observe today. Beyond the expansion of warming water, the second critical driver is the addition of new water from melting ice. Warmer air temperatures melt the ice sheets from above, while warmer ocean currents erode them from below, accelerating their slide into the sea. Glaciers like Thwaites are grounded on bedrock below sea level. As warm ocean water intrudes, it can trigger a runaway retreat that is nearly impossible to stop. The first tangible consequence of a rapidly rising sea is not a dramatic, permanent flood, but a relentless increase in the frequency and severity of nuisance flooding. Occurring without a storm, they are simply the result of the new, higher baseline sea level spilling into low-lying areas during routine high tides. This constant presence of salt water begins a process of slow-motion destruction, seeping into the foundations of buildings, roads, and bridges. The damage is insidious, accumulating out of sight until it leads to sudden, costly failures. Maintenance budgets become completely overwhelmed. The value of their homes, often their largest financial asset, begins to plummet as the risk becomes undeniable and uninsurable. This creates a stark and visible divide within cities, a geography of climate apartheid, as the resources for adaptation are available only to a privileged few. As the ocean pushes inland, one of the most critical consequences is saltwater intrusion into freshwater aquifers, which supply drinking water for billions. Farmers notice their crop yields declining as the water they pump from their wells becomes saline, eventually rendering the soil sterile. Municipal water supplies are the next to fall. Water rationing becomes the new normal, and clean drinking water becomes a luxury. Port facilities are the arteries of global trade. A 1-meter rise means docks are regularly overtopped and loading equipment is damaged. Critical data centers and cable landing points for transoceanic fiber, located in low-lying coastal areas, are now at direct risk of flooding. The loss of multiple coastal power plants places an impossible strain on the remaining inland grid, triggering rolling blackouts far from the coast. The insurance industry is the first institutional domino to fall. Faced with unquantifiable coastal risk, insurers withdraw, and trillions in assets become uninsured. Financial markets are thrown into turmoil as entire sectors, coastal real estate, tourism, agriculture, are written off. This is not a recession, it's a permanent revaluation of the global economic landscape. The system-wide human impact is defined by one overwhelming phenomenon: mass migration. This movement represents the largest migration in human history. Nations fortify their borders not against armies, but against desperate, unarmed climate refugees. Governments, overwhelmed, resort to authoritarian measures, internal checkpoints, fortified reception zones, and squalid camps. The social contract is broken. Conflict over resources becomes the primary driver of international disputes. The most intense conflicts erupt over transboundary rivers, leading to a series of water wars. A new, stark global hierarchy emerges: climate havens, fortress states, and drowned states. The world order is reshaped not by ideology, but by the unforgiving physics of a rising ocean. By the mid-21st century, a handful of megacities deemed too critical to lose are transformed into heavily fortified coastal citadels. Outside these zones, the dominant strategy is one of managed retreat, a planned process of relocating populations and infrastructure further inland. The economic focus is no longer on relentless growth, but on stability, redundancy, and self-sufficiency. Agriculture undergoes a transformation. Vertical farming, hydroponics, and the development of salt-tolerant crops become mainstream. The era of hyper-individualism gives way to a renewed emphasis on collective survival and local identity. The 1-meter rise was a traumatic, system-resetting event that forced a painful but necessary adaptation. The world did not end. It was simply and irrevocably changed. What scenario should we explore next? Share your ideas below. You've been watching IfVerse, where imagination meets possibility. See you in our next reality.